Hi folks, this is the Model G of the ENFJ. This used to be called the Energo model, but Victor decided to change it to Victor Gulenko. Dr. Victor Gulenko decided to change it to Model G because it's not just about energy. However, the energy component goes from left to right. So it's fair to say that ENFJ has the most energy for FE and NI, the lead FE and the auxiliary NI. So as you can see in here, the functions in green will be familiar to you as the valued functions in JBTI, which is what I call it. And the red functions are the shadow functions. And I will be going over each block in order as to which is which and explaining each block. So social mission block and social adaptation, self-affirmation, and inflation avoidance. But I'm going to give a couple of concepts here. So we've got the energy decreaser as you go across. And when I get to the block, say the social adaptation block, I will explain how the type really does have low energy for extroverted sensing. They like the idea of it, but when it comes to eating the meal, their eyes are bigger than their belly. It's just like INFJ is liking the idea of TI, but then the INTP thinking, oh, I've tired out the INFJ. No, not as enthusiastic as I thought. Right, so now I'm going to give a little bit of context because I'm not all about the functions. So some of the so ENFJ is not just a bag of 8 functions. It's also an EJ type. That means it leads with TE or FE. In this case, it leads with FE. So it's an extroverted judging type, or as Carl Jung wrote, an extroverted rational type. So in Victor Gulenko's mindset, which is how I translate it, because Keirsey earned the right to use the word temperament, and he was a war hero. So, linear assertive. So, we do have a lot of energy. Leon Sell, Type Tips on YouTube, once made the very apt observation that ESFJs have the energy of 3 people. And I agree with him about that. So, some of these things maybe that might seem like an overgeneralization where it says unrelenting, they take no compromise. Well, 3 of the 4 EJs are in charge types. So ENFJ being the queen of the NFs, ESTP being the queen of the SPs, and ESTJ being the queen of the SJs. I hope I got that right. Yeah, and so ESTP, ENTJ, ESFJ. No, mate, I got that wrong. I got it all mixed up. So the in-charge types are, let me write this down, ESTJ, ESTP, ENTJ, ENTJ, and what's the other one? ENFJ. These are the in-charge types, and it's 1 from each temperament. Dear me. So, but ESFJ is the only one. They can be like that. They can be assertive. Ask anyone with ESFJ parents. So that's one aspect overall. There's sort of a superordinate group M. There's 2 superordinate group M's besides the mindset. And these are the Keirsey temperaments. And this is, Dario got this from Linda Barons, and this is sort of like a functional basis of the Keirsey temperaments. And I will read this through because it's so important. And this explains why the division is uneven. Keirsey saw in the 1950s or early 60s, he saw SF and ST, and he thought, no, SJ and SP, that fits better. Right, to answer Ben's question about Keirsey temperaments and type, what does deep theoretical mean here? In a nutshell, SPs and SJs are world-oriented, and NT and NF types are cognitive-oriented. Remember, they are abstract in speech. The hypothesis: for sensing types, the tangible outer world has a special relevance because they are strongly anchored or interested in tangible reality. For them, the line between the inner and outer worlds is distinct. Thus, for sensing types, the function that is oriented to the outer world, be it SE in SJs or in SPs, or TE or FE in SJs, is really crucial. In contrast, for intuiting types, he always likes to use the verb rather than the noun. For intuiting types, the conceptual inner world has a special relevance because they enjoy exploring ideas, possibilities, metaphors, potential theories, etc., all mental abstractions. For them, the line between the real world and the conceptual world is fuzzy. Thus, for intuiting types, the function pairs, the nature of the psychological condition itself is particularly important. Intuitive with thinking or intuitive with feeling. In other words, for the sensing types, there is less interpretation than with the intuiting types. And so when there's more interpretation, the nature of that interpretation is more important than the nature of the perception. Whereas for the sensing types, the nature of the perception is more important. And also, as Dario wrote there, in terms of the top extroverted function. So the next one is, so that's the superordinate parents. A little bit more on ENFJ. Their interaction style is proactive and directive. They are directive and expressive. Think of the teacher, the mentor, Oprah Winfrey, the leader, expressive and directive, like all the other. I should have just mentioned this first. Look, there is the STJ, proactive and expressive. Initiator. NTs, initiator. ENTJ. So these are the natural leaders of each of the temperaments. ESTP, initiating promoter. The initiators, the preemptive initiators. So these are the superordinate groupings. Now we can get down to functions. So these are the valued functions, and the other ones are blocked out. These are the unvalued function. I will be going over each one as I go through each block. So I will not go over this now. You can pause it now if you want to have a look. Well, you don't need my permission to pause it. Now, a small commercial, because I will get my 10%. So, Sana, any NFs out there with some money or know someone with money, you can put in a bid for this. Just leave a comment below. Oh, in talking of below, if you go in the descriptions box, there is a link to Dr. Victor Gulenko himself comparing ENFJ with ENFP. And it's not loads of functions and stuff. Well, not too much anyway. It's like working on a whole type level, the 10 points of difference. Right, and this is to prove that Sana painted it. She's not for sale, but her paintings are. There's another one by her. And there's another one that should appeal to NFs. And maybe a little bit political as well with the rainbow down there. Nothing wrong with that. So, oh yes, I forgot to mention something about the model. I mentioned the energy. Externalities and internalities. Externalities are directed towards the outer world. Internalities are come into effect when the person is on their territory. And I'll get onto that later on, but a little sneak peek. So when the ENFJ is sort of on their own, they're not really using FE when nobody else is around. So they get a little bit of a shift, and that's a little bit INTJ-ish. I know that sounds controversial, but we'll get to it there. So the scope of use. So smaller scope of use. When they're on their territory, when they're introverting, these functions come more into play. Because it's hard to do the NI thing when you're out there in the world, focused on other people, when you're interacting with them. So, here is some theory about this block, the social mission block. So two functions working together, the social mission. What does Victor call this type? The mentor. What did Keirsey call this type? The mentor educator. So already there's a lot of agreement between that. And both of them were married to ENFJ resemblers, and Victor still is. It's just that Keirsey is now rest in peace. Maximum energy for the lead function. Lots of energy and a wide scope of use. Externalities quartet, so the 4 functions in the top row, externalities quartet, so that's going to be FE, NE, TE, and SE for ENFJ. And it's stimulated by the function in the launcher positions. That's going to be extroverted sense. We'll look at that later on. It's a little sneak peek. It's about they resist. They're sort of like it's power sensing of resistance. So they will stand up for a cause, the downtrodden who are being subjugated, looking for a cause. Title, externalities indicates that this functional circuit is directed outward on society. The externalities group takes precedence whenever society is involved. Therefore, we placed it above internalities because when it comes to survival and development, Socion is of greater importance than a single type. That's to quote Victor. Think of that what you may. Indicated by down arrows, top functions suppress lower functions, but on its territory, the bottom functions are free from the control of the upper functions. Analogy, rider, horse. So in ENFJ, the rider is the extroverted feeling, and the horse is the introverted intuition. When the type is on their own, and interesting with this particular pairing of functions, NI being, in my opinion, the most introverted function, because it's the least conscious of all of the functions. It's the most that is in the unconscious, and then you get the answer, and the NFJ knows they're right. They have a feeling that they're right, but they don't quite know why they are right. With the NTJs, they can sort of rationalize it a little bit more, but sometimes they have their moments where it's a case of I just know, or so they think. Maximum energy endowed with excess capacity. There we go, excess capacity. So these can be overindulged. Endowed with excess capacity, it consumes the lion's share of the psyche's emotional energy. The more powerful the first function, the more distance the communicative field covers. What this is basically saying is that the dominant function is the most noticeable. Right, it sets the agenda. Now, I would argue that pretty much all the valued functions set the agenda. It's just that the most of the agenda is set by the extroverted feeling. And we'll get to that with the ENFJ. So, goal definition. There we go, italics added by Ben Vaserlan. Grey positional headings, unvalued, subdued. Right. Oh, I'll just remember, I'm going to zoom in on this bit, so I'll tell you what this is, optimum energies. And this is the creative function. This is the tool for implementing things here. It's a powerful unconscious function. Which FeNx in model beam? Optimum energy. I'll tell you what, I'll zoom in on this and then I'll go back out to that. You'll have to telepathically remind me to get out. Temporal time travel kind of reminded me. Government of the psyche in charge of setting goals and making decisions. Paired with position 6, i.e. manipulative. So that's going to be TI in that position in ENFJ. Young MBTI equivalent, the dominant function. Model B archetype, the hero stroke heroine. Dario Nardi. High EEG electroencephalogram activity in regions correlated with the Jungian function in this position. Also related to function-specific macro stage, i.e. whole neocortex EEG stage. States. See page 43 in Neuroscience of Personality. Because it's not just phrenology with Dario. It's not just this part of the brain is associated with this. That can sometimes happen, but there are also circuits and different patterns. So see the Dario Nardi playlist. Go to the search box if you want. Type in Dario Nardi, and you'll find the videos on this channel. There's about 5 or 6 of them. Oh, it says that down there in the bottom left. Right, so now I'm going to say a bit more about the creative position, and then I'm going to actually use the example as ESFP in order to prove how powerful this function can be. So optimum energy. Basically, it's just enough to get the task done, because it's a tool that's used to get the job done. And so these are the ends, these are the means. Function receives as much energy as is needed to solve challenges. And so you'll see in a moment how ENFJ uses extroverted intuition, after I've shown you it for ESFP, because it's easier to understand that way. The more complex the task, the more energy at its disposal. So it's used as and when it's required, but not for its own sake. Implementation. So execution of decisions made at stage 1, management. This one, as you can see, sorry. The function implements or creates. The function is flexible and unconventional, which is also associated with creativity. Paired with position 7, i.e. break. Right then, so this is a little bit of tough theory about how this sort of function creates the break function. It's a little bit of advanced, so I won't go into that at the moment. This gets quite complicated as to why the break function is the way it is in all of the types. But it's a combination of the other functions doing things and the way they're arranged, so that it's sort of like it never gets into a use, it never gets used because other functions doing something similar. So yeah, this is because it's not really talked about, because this is the fish that doesn't know its wet function. So this is the water that the ENFJ fish swims in. What is done rather than what is thought and or said. Thus, high EEG activity is not necessarily predicted for this function. And then I had a look at the maps. However, ISTJ, ENTP, anyway, let's look for ENFJ. Okay, so these types show higher EEG activity. And then there's some notes there about weird incompatibilities that I won't go into now. So that's enough theory for this block. Now let's go to some proof of how powerful this function is. So imagine that this is the management function of ESFP. So that would be SE. And this is how pretty much artistry, audacity, adaptability, immersing yourself in the present context and wanting impacts and seeking sensation. And you've got FI things coming in here as well, attention and kindness and generosity and seeking pleasure. And I'll look through the Keirsey profile. Look at these behaviors. Which function does this sound like? Working with people and are outstanding at public relations. Okay, so that's extroverted feeling. Pleasing others, extroverted feeling, but as a performer. The attention. Stimulating those around them. Again, it's extroverted emotions. Radiate warmth. Come on, FE. What other function can that be? Lift others' spirits. Again, FE. Charming them. FE. Communal in outlook. FE. Emotion expressive. FE. Intent on pleasing everybody. Check out the profile. These are in there. These things are also can be said of ESFJ, but they are not used for the same reason. They are used for this. But it's not just them being an attention magnet. They also have the kindness, and quite frequently they can have 2 in their tri-type or even resemble an Enneagram type 2. So now we're going to get, and I deliberately organized it like this. So that's position 1, that's the management. So you've got FE in the management position and NE in the creative position. So even there, you should have an idea how they're working together. And then in the next one, it will actually be the description for that position. So hopefully Megan is watching this, because she said she'd reply to that. And so she can come back and think, does she agree that she shows the passion, the drama, the emotion, the charisma, the exuberance, the excitement, enthusiasm, emotion, expression, and togetherness? And I'm also going to show this to, I think it's Sarah MBTI, that's it. Togetherness, FA themes. So if you want to achieve those goals, and then using the NE, and you'll see, okay, how does this achieve this? So if you want to like solve a problem involving people, we'll see that in a moment. So ingenuity, potential, innovation, interest, theory, possibility, absurdity, freedom, injury. I'll just say something about potential. Potential is not in an object. An object has qualities. Its potential is determined by the context. and the knowledge base of the person looking at the object and the connections that they make. You can only make the connection between A and B if you know about B. Right, so now we get to the details of how these two functions work together. I'll read this through in case people are watching it on their mobiles, because Google Analytics say that people do watch their videos that way, these videos that way. So, ethical, intuitive extroverts, FeNx, because, and you can see why I put the X in, because NE is so powerful, it depends on the mode. When they're introverting, the NI will come more into play. The emotions of an ENFJ are based on who's watching, at her very core, which makes her sensitive to others' emotional state as well. Maria was written there. Purple. Depends on the subtype. Flexible, will play whatever role the circumstances demand. Even though the mindset is linear assertive, Fe is a dynamic function, because when you're focused on other people, when you're calibrating them, which is when the other person is the measure that you adjust yourself to. So you're calibrating yourself against them. It's very other focused. ENFJ have great control over the content they can convey. They can easily switch from drama to joy, from lofty to base forms of expression. This may a little bit deterministic with the Fe minus. Now they can also easily switch to the Fe plus as well. It's just that compared to ESFJ is more the jolly organizer. ENFJ can do the happy Fe too, but remember their Fe is connected with the extroverted sensing, whereas in ESFJ their Fe is combined with SI, which is like comfort sensing, so it's going to have more of a softer edge to it than ENFJ. Remember, ENFJ is directive, a leader, and sometimes that means going up against resistance. Right, very good at inspiring and uniting people to get things done. Again, directive, get things done, as well as coming up with plans for rapid and drastic action. What occurs, you right? Proactive initiator. Well, preemptive initiator, proactive enterprise. When a discussion turns to a subject he is passionate about, will become argumentative, criticize and denounce his opponents. And then Maria's written, that might describe supervisee shift towards INTJ in the critic, because below you've got NI and TI, which is the social mission block of INTJ. NE plus, I need to push on with these so the video's not too long. ENFJ encourage new and promising ideas undertaken or come up with them on their own. Will often combine a number of sources or approaches within one pioneer project. ENFJ can succeed where most people see no opportunity. Quite entrepreneurial. In fact, Megan could talk about that in her reply video, please. Keep searching for and discovering new talents and abilities in themselves, and not just themselves, also in other people, because they are a catalyst type. Think of the teacher role. Can find a novel solution of a problem by emphasizing controversy. I don't quite know what that's, a little bit weird, but maybe if they're really sort of like going in the social champion role, maybe that can come up. Often acts on an impulse, easily takes risks. Okay, so that's that block. The next block is the social adaptation block. So you get lower energy here, but still extroverted, but lower energy. So still quite a wide scope of use, but it's going to become a bit of a chore. So the role function. The role function is of the same mindset as the lead one. I would argue that because extroverted feeling is so focused on other people, that if other people want to do the TE thing, the ENFJ and ESFJ will adjust to that and do the TE thing because it's for other people. So these FE DOMs probably have a stronger role function, or rather a stronger function in the role position than other types because of that, because of the focus on other people. So ESFJ and ENFJ in a work situation, they're going to switch to the TE thing because that is what other people want. Other types might not do it as readily because they're not in a position that calls for them to switch to that mode as much. It depends on the social field. Right, so, and again, it's the same mindset. Fe and T are both extroverted judging functions. Function is at minimum for the solution of the corresponding task level energy consumption. Thus, it is able to regularly solve repetitive simple tasks. So basically, it's just what is needed. So when the task cannot be sort of solved with the FE and the NE, it's switched to the TE and the SE. And again, it's not preferred, but they can do it. And in the ENFJs, as an EJ has a lot of energy, so they have a lot of energy to use to adapt. In the case of INTJ and INFJ, they have less energy and they have to spend it very wisely, especially in the case of INTJ. So they can be quite mean with their time and energy. Function that is trained in the way an athlete is trained by a coach or an actor is rehearsing his parts. Usual name, role function. So it has to be continually attended to, continually trained up or lose muscle mass. Just like you can read that there, because I need to speed up a bit here. So you can pause it and read that right there. So it's like an athlete. And again, you can see here, model B archetype, the demon or daemon function, it's a shadow function. Launcher, I'll talk more about. So triggered from the outside, we'll see in a moment how extroverted sensing launches the ENFJ when they see it in other people in terms of you'll see what I mean. There's no point explaining it now and then showing it again. The most sensitive is about new data input or collecting the feedback. So very, very sensitive for this, but not much energy. Needs to be supplied from the outside. Cannot generate them. It's very hard for them to generate it themselves. Although it might be easier for the EJs because they have more energy overall. Because it is very sensitive, the function in this position is chronologically first, i.e. it launches the new round of mental activity. And you'll see why that is in a moment. This is equivalent to the tertiary function in JBTI. Model B of equivalent, Puella, Puella. Model 8 is hidden agenda or mobilizer. Right, so, I don't even need to do that. I just need to go on to the next one. These are the functions in those positions. So the extroverted logic, you can see that. Profit, pragmatism, information, productivity, efficiency, instruction, evidence, practice, business, fact. Extroverted, sensation in the launcher position. Power, audacity, action, territory, force, impulse, context, space, ambition, possession. But it's, in the case of ENFJ, it's them resisting this. If they see people who are the victim of this, with ENTJs, they want that. So there's a difference between power sensing of resistance and power sensing of subordination. Now it will become clear. So role function T plus. When involved in what he sees as a promising project, may forget to eat and rest. But other types of the same temperament, mindset, often satisfied, so EJ, not the Keirsey one, not NF, often satisfied with just 4 to 5 hours of sleep as long as she can sleep in on weekends. So that was added by Maria. She's able to get significant results with regards to a specific process, but loses motivation soon when success is achieved. Will tackle difficult problems, yet feels crushed by failure. Enjoys overcoming obstacles. Part of that will be the extroverted sensor as well. Successful in management positions, provided she has the necessary persistence. Yeah, okay. There's a lot of caveats with Victor and INTPs in general. I can get a bit declarative though. As mentioned before by Dr. G, does not like being watched while working. Right, probably because they're an image type. Frequently in Enneagram. Right, launcher extroverted sensor. This is a very important position. Can't stand coercion and rough treatment, both of himself and his allies. So when they see this in other people, it's a little bit like ENFP when they're in the role of advocator. But if they see, they will stand up for people. They are an NF. They will stand up for people if they see an injustice. Or in the less healthy ones, they can sort of latch onto it and use it as a mechanism for their own gain. But again, that's the less healthy ones. Takes action to protest against any violence and oppression. There we go. Takes action to protest against any violence and oppression. That is outside of them. Has a rebel personality. Not in the SP way, but in the case of rebelling against that kind of suppression that's around them of other people, then they will rebel against that. Vengeance and righting the wrongs often propel his social activity. Cruel actions arouse outbursts of indignation. So righteous indignation. It may be a manifestation of launch SE that ENFJ takes a stand a lot more readily when in a public so the image type, more attention, or when the opponent is stronger or of higher standing than herself, which may just be another wording for rebel personality. Likewise, ENFJ's motivation for applying herself depends on the scale of the project. So that was added by Maria. Right, so the next one is, right, so now we get the type when it's introverting. So this is some theory about scope of use. Narrow scope of use, when a type is introverting on their territory, these are strong. At close psychological distance, functions included in the bottom row are called interlatives, which means they are aimed at its territory. When working externally, internalization is suppressed and muted by the vertical supervision, one-way inhibition. The function in the first position, so it's going to be FE, constrains the function in the fifth, it's going to be NI. The second, NE, constrains the TI. The third, TE, constrains the SI. And the fourth constrains, which is SE, constrains the FI. Right, strongest position at close range. According to it, man is asserting itself. At the same time, it is a signal for attracting your jewel. So in the case of ENFJ, the NI hits the ISTP's NI. They are hot for the NI. Look at John Grinder, always writing about unconscious competence. Equivalent of auxiliary. Working together, individuals are, this block dominates at close range territory. Manipulative function. Function that is managed or governed from the outside is called manipulative because it's easily manipulated. And again, this is equivalent to the inferior function, and you can model it. So I've got to move on, so this is not too long. So these are the functions in that position. Introverted intuition. You can pause it and read that yourself. I don't want to get too slow. None of those require any what I'll do here is I'll read through this, and if I think anything needs explanation, I'll explain it. So you can see how one or two are sort of like associated with their like active catalyst personality of being active in the world and trying to bring about change. Right. Again, abstract type. Yeah, but it probably don't have a lot of time for the cutting edge science, technology, and design because it goes against their social mission. But when they have the time, they can do that thing and go a little bit INTJ-ish. This is the social mission of the INTJ, social mission block, NI with powerful unconscious TI in the INTJ. But these are the auxiliary and the inferior in MBTI. Yeah. I would say that's a little bit unhealthy, number 6, but they can go to the positive side of it. Okay. Number 6. That's true. I know somebody who told me about an ENFJ resembler who was a mathematical prodigy at a young age, but it's sort of like they sort of got burnt out because of it. But again, the way the social condition was, they might get them on their territory, but other things will come into play that can get burned out because it is only the inferior function after all. So in special circumstances, it can be strong. Again, narrow scope of use. Right, doesn't need much explanation. Right, so Megan, maybe Megan can reply as to when in certain conditions you might go a supervisee shift to INTJ, where she might go a bit INTJ-ish. Right, so next one. These are the weakest two functions. Inflation avoidance block. Swelling of information in the absence of real energy. From the point of view of society, the person wastes energy in vain. Great analogy by Victor. I know there was very nearly hyperinflation in Russia. That have also may have happened in the Ukraine as well. Overvoltage on this block leads to the collapse of the mind, just as monetary inflation leads to the collapse of the economy. Victor Glenn. And if you don't believe it, every time there's been hyperinflation, it's because of the increased money supply. It's not due to an increase in demand. Increase in supply of money and or credit. See piece of chef. Oh yes, see piece of chef. Overexertion on this block. So, case of ENFJ, you'll see it. It's SI. As mentioned above, they will work themselves too hard. Nice problem to have. Yeah, one's a little bit complicated. Equivalent to trickster, also known as vulnerable position. I think Megan calls it like the superpower, or other ones call it the blind spot. Dario Nardi, least preferred function along with the function in the role position, because the preference for functions in management and demonstrative positions which have maximum energy. Okay, that's his view. Yeah, least preferred, yes. I mean, the tertiary function has less energy, but it's more preferred. And this is less preferred than the control position, but the control position really doesn't have a lot of energy for it, but it has a lot of information for it. So this is the all talk and no walk function in the control position. So for example, ENTP might tell people about all the trends and stuff and like a goal to focus on, but not going to do it themselves, because it means the opportunity cost of, if they focus on A, it means they can't do B, C, D, and E. So their problem, so they ignore the NI single path because they see multiple paths. Whereas the control function in INTJ is NE, which means they ignore the possibilities as they focus on the one path. So high information, but low energy. Right, you can see that there. Oh, this idea that it also coaches the role function of the dual. So that would be ISTP. So in this position, this is FI for ENFJ. So sort of like subtly coaching and developing the FI in ISTP. The actions to which the person is closely monitoring, it is very sensitive about it. The type thinks a lot. So INTP thinks a lot about how they're bad with their practical thinking, and they need to get a move on and stop procrastinating. Right, big point by me. A person cannot be a sociotype. Individuation pattern. They can only resemble one. I refer to myself as a TINX resembler because I only resemble the TINX construct. So, not too late, but it's going to be over 30 minutes. So these are the functions in this position. Now, this doesn't mean that the ENFJs are shabby. It just means that because they're about other people. So they are going to have an attention on these things. It's just that, and so you'll see how this will manifest. It manifests as them not looking after themselves internally. They can still keep up a good appearance because it's the FE thing for other people. They work themselves too hard. Introverted ethics, you can see that. I'll talk more about that in a moment because of how it relates to rapport and ethics of relations in socionics. Again, I'll shut up unless I see something that needs explanation. Yeah, SI minus is about minimizing discomfort rather than maximizing comfort in the case of SI plus. Yeah, think of like 2 wing 3. Megan could talk about that. Maria added that about the guy virtue signaling. You might have been into it as well, or both. Foods with opposite flavors. Again, comment on that, Megan. Control position. Monitors the relationships within his circle very closely. Okay, socionics has a little bit of a different view on extroverted feeling. Extroverted feeling for them is the emotional atmosphere around them, and in order to manage that atmosphere and have those positive emotions around them, they might do the harmony thing, but the NFJs are less about the harmony thing than the SFJs, because the SFJs have the FE with valued SI. NFJs don't value SI. The NFJs value SE. They're using the FE to create the emotions to move people usually towards a cause, towards a goal, because they got that NI goal setting, and the SE, which is about active and getting to that goal. Again, they are catalysts of change. Right, number 6. There's an example of high information but low energy. All talk and no walk disposition. So ethics of relations. So in order for the FE Dom to have a positive atmosphere around them, they will be focused on other people. Most of the time, it's not as calculated as that. It's just a focus on other people, and then they get the positive reactions, and then that they like that. So in Megan's case, I saw that she identified as Enneagram 2 Wing 3, 2 being about acceptance and approval, again, from other people, and then how that makes them feel. A little bit different from the 9. Although the 9 will exhibit same behavior. A little bit on rapport. You can pause that and read that. Again, so that's based on a subjective feeling of empathy, the connection with somebody. And again, it's subjective. You can have, and I've mentioned this in previous nutshells, you can have a fan of a celebrity feel that they have a rapport with the celebrity, but it's based on their feelings about the celebrity. So it can be a little bit of a projection involved. So again, the rapport level, the connection, the things they have in common with the NFs, especially the NFPs, usually it's value based. If they think they share the same values, they have that connection. With other types, it can be something less abstract. It can be just shared interests. Again, rapport. Jonathan on FI. So INFJ, this is how he believes he uses FI. You pause that, you can read it. Again, I don't want to make this too long. Probably over half an hour already. This is just a little bit about the ENFJ and Keirsey, again, the teacher. I'm just going to look for the bits which are related to function. Again, ethics of emotions. So I've got ethics of emotions in pink, what I've tagged there. Again, look at the stuff with emotions. Again, directive. All these are directive, these are informing. When you're counseling someone, you're directing them. You know how much to push. Push. Enthusiasm, again. Emotionally expressive. The NE part can dream up effortlessly, almost endlessly, activities for their groups to engage in. NE with FE, anyone? It's again FE, emotions. Then you can read that in pink. You can pause it and read it. Not much time. Again, I'm putting that in the FI bucket. Empathy, rapport, project. There we go, as I mentioned that. Then we'll move up. You want to pause it. Number 8 and number 9. You want to pause it. Again, some NE stuff. In blue. FI in green. That's quite funny. So again, the sort of limited TI. Maybe it's limited to certain situations where it's strong. Again, it depends on the individual. Right. Again, a little bit more. There's a little bit about the extroverted sensing there. It's very faint. Right, this weird about the way they use extroverted sensing, and sometimes they can be directive, and then sometimes being taken advantage of. Now, something from Victor Gulenko. So, quite frequently, ENFJs in their personal relationship, they can be submissive, even though in their other relationships they're more dominant because they're attracted to that extroverted sensing in their partner. So it doesn't mean they're submissive all the while, because remember, overall they are an in-charge type, an preemptive initiator. It's just that in romance style, they are classified as victim. Well, it wasn't me that translated it. It is what it is. So this is about emotions, and this is Kerr Avon. That's a good joke at the bottom about Blake 7 and the number of people in it. Just want to pause that. There's more than one person in the Federation. There's 8. Right, so this is a bit about INTJs, the way they express emotion. And this is what their FE break is like. So this will be a little bit of opposite, and Megan can comment on this, hopefully. You're never involved, are you, Avon? You ever cared for anyone except yourself? I've never understood why it should be necessary to become irrational, so emotional, and emotionally expressive, in order to prove that you care, or indeed why it should be necessary to prove it at all. So that does not want to express the emotions, but is keeping it on the inside. Was that an insult, or did I miss something? No, you missed something. Callie, the NF, the resident NF on the ship. And this is the last one. And this is, if you want to pause this, these are lines in my stage player, which is linked above. Well, it's linked above on my cover page, on my homepage. So what have we got there? A little bit cheeky. The Itachi Magic Wand muscle massager puts the R in Itachi. Now, I could sell that to them. If anyone, any Hitachi people watching this, which is unlikely, I will sell that to you. Puts the R in Itachi. All right, then. That is about it. All right. Are there any more? That's the beginning. Back to the beginning again. I've pretty much done everything. So you can click the tags above, and it will go to some similar videos. It's not perfect. And then there's some links below. I am now going to stop this so that it doesn't get too long. So hopefully, I would like to get your feedback on this. Right then.